Thank you very much, Jira, and welcome everybody. I'll just introduce myself and my colleague, Chelsea, quickly. So my name is Tim Lawrence. I'm the subject advisor for international science qualifications here at Pearson EdXL, which means I'm the main point of contact for teachers who have questions about teaching the courses that we offer and the assessment and so on. You might know, some of you, my colleague Irene, who is the science subject advisor. She's now focusing on the UK qualifications, but also sending out the subject updates, which if you haven't already signed up to, you can from the qualification website, which we're going to talk a lot about today. And so you might get updates from Irene, but if you want to talk to somebody about the course, your emails and your bookings for Teams meetings will come through to me. Chelsea Pateman is also here and will be answering your questions in the chat and generally helping me with any kind of technical points that I find difficulty with. Chelsea is the product manager for international science qualifications, which means that she is responsible for developing the new courses, the specification, and other key support materials on the website, which we'll be talking about. And she's coming down with a virus, so may not be talking too much, but I don't know. Did you want to say hello, Chelsea? I've done most of the talking for you.
I'll say hello. Yeah, so if I sort of am responsible for all the support material, the free support material that you'd receive with the qualification, the general development, you can probably hear my voice is quite croaky, so I will be answering your questions as well as I can in the chat, and then there'll be opportunity for more questions at the end, if you feel it hasn't been answered. So please do pop them in the chat, and I'll do what I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. So yes, as Jira, our event moderator, said, please do use the chat to ask any questions at any point, and Chelsea will be keeping a close eye on those and answering them in the chat. Occasionally I will pause and have a look. If it's easier for you to ask a question by unmuting, then please do raise your hand, and we're very happy to be interrupted. If anything I say isn't clear, doesn't make sense, then please do ask questions. Some of you may have joined our biology or chemistry training last week, and if you did, then this will be a very similar presentation that actually covers a lot of the same points. But what we found last week was that the questions that were asked were quite different between the two sessions. So actually I know that some teachers found it useful to attend the second one. So your questions make the training much more useful. So please do ask if you're unclear about anything. Okay, I think those are the main things I wanted to say before we properly start. So I'll now turn back to the presentation. So some of you are familiar with our International GCSE Physics course, the linear course that's been running up till now. Others will be teaching different courses, but are now considering switching or have decided to switch because of the new modular pathway. So this is just a little about the choice that's now available to you between linear and modular, and just clarifying what those terms mean. So the linear route works very well for many students and schools. Linear means that the course is assessed entirely by exams at the end of the course. All the exams have to be taken together. And if the student did want to improve their grade by resitting, they would have to take all of the exams for the qualification again. But we know, and this is a tried and tested route, it's the same as our international A-levels, for example. For many students, it works better to spread those exams out through the course, and that's the modular system. So the linear journey is not changing in any way. Those courses are still available to you, but from now onwards, there's a choice of two different routes to the same qualification, the same GCSE in physics or combined science. And if you're not, double award science, combined science is the term we use in the UK for the equivalent. If you're not familiar with double award science, then we'll be talking about that more shortly. So the modular route breaks down this learning journey into discrete units with an exam for each unit, and the units are independent in that they can be sat and resat just one without having to retake the whole course's assessment. And really important to stress this, and a key message for you to give to parents and students when you're talking to them. Both routes take the same amount of time to teach. They cover exactly the same physics content. The exams take the same amount of total time to sit. And so the difference really is just that there is the ability to stagger the exams if you choose to spread them out and to resit individual units. Everything else remains the same. As the bar at the bottom of this slide reminds us, so the content, the level of demand, the style of questions are the same. And it's worth noting here that this modular route to GCSE is only being offered by Pearson edXL at the moment. So again, I'll pause after this slide just to look at the chat, see if you have any questions, see if anyone's raising their hand, but this is just a bit more comparison of the two routes. There's no tier of entry for either. So some of you will know that for certain qualifications, for our UK science GCSEs, for example, we have higher tier and foundation tier papers. Higher tier for those students who are aiming for the higher grades, up to grade 9. Foundation tier for those who are aiming for a grade 4 or 5, which have lower demand questions. But for the International GCSE, for modular and for linear, there's just one paper for students covering all the grade range, which makes actually the administration much more simple. One key difference, which takes a little explaining, and I imagine many of your students and parents will need some help understanding, is the uniform mark scale, which exists for the modular route. So for linear qualifications, raw marks are used to set the grade boundaries. And so when you find the results on results day, you see the mark the student got. It's the actual mark on the paper, and you can compare that with the grade boundaries and see how close they were to the grade above, for example. With modular qualifications, the raw mark, which is the number of marks on each paper, each exam that the student scores, are converted into a mark for the GCSE Physics. It's out of 120 for each paper, and that's called the uniform mark. And the conversion is following a different formula for each exam. That's how the grade boundaries are set for individual exams, if the questions are slightly easier or harder. But the grade boundaries for the UMS are always the same. So a certain number of marks out of 120 is always a grade 9. And the reason for using that is to make sure that when units can be retaken or sat in different exam series, that they contribute in the same way based on the difficulty of the paper. So the uniform mark scale is calculated from the raw mark, but in a unique way for each exam. And that's the credit, if you like, that goes forward to calculate the overall grade. As I've said, for modular, that students can resit individual units. They can sit them in any exam series. Whereas for the linear routes, they must sit all the papers together in one series. It's up to your school, your centre, when the units are cashed in for modular qualification. So they could, for example, sit their exams, sit all of them, but not yet claim a grade. They could wait to see what their result is, decide whether to resit one of the units, and then cash in when they're ready. So the cash in is a separate code that's entered by the exams officers, which says, once all the units are taken, please award a grade. Whereas for linear, there's no choice. Once the exams are sat, a grade is automatically awarded. So sorry, let me just pause there. I will have a look at the chat and see if there's anything that I can usefully talk about. So David, I'm looking at your question. For physics, there are no separate units for each tier, but topics/points within the units. And the line is sometimes vague. Can you please clarify how to differentiate between them? So Chelsea may have a better understanding of your question, or you may wish to unmute to clarify.
Sorry, did you want me to jump in here?
Do please.
I was just typing its response. So from what I've understood by your question, it's more about how do you know what's in each sort of exam, or maybe there's like, so you have the topics within the physics specification, and then those topics will be split into the Unit 1 and the Unit 2 exam. If you refer to the specification, that's outlined in the assessment overview part of that's right at the very start of the specification. And then as you read through the specification, that will give you more detail in regards to what specification point is in each unit. The Getting Started guide will also help with that. And there is also an additional supporting mapping document. I can link all of these in response to your comment so you can find them directly. And that will tell you exactly for each specification point, exactly what unit it's assessed in. Hopefully that answers your question there. Tim,
And
I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, only that we've got slides I know coming up in a few minutes, which will also help to clarify it. So David, if you maybe ask us again if it's not clear after we've gone through the next part of the presentation. I also want.
Sorry, I was just going to clarify as well, just because I've seen a reference to tier a couple of times. There's no tier for modular and linear science, which is great because you don't have to worry about making sure if you've entered your students for the right tier and perhaps restricting them in any way. So with both the linear, but obviously the modular exams as well, it means that all of the grades are available to the students. So for physics, that's grade 9 to 1. And for double award, that because it's 2 grades awarded, that's 99211. So is available in all exams, no tiering. So it saves that decision. Sorry, Tim, back to you.
Yeah, no, I was just going to answer that one myself because I've caused confusion by talking about higher and foundation papers. So sorry, but I was only doing so to explain what no tiering meant. So to understand that, you have to understand what tiering is. But the point is there is none for either of our international qualifications. That only applies to our UK GCSEs. So all the content in the specification needs to be taught to all the students. One other thing which we will talk about later is if you have, well, there's a combined science, the double award course, where only around 2/3 of the content of the physics specification is covered, and that's why some of the specification statements are in bold, and they're just for the students who are doing physics GCSE, not for the double award students. But that again we will cover in a future slide. Okay, let's move on. Thank you very much for those questions. So this slide just takes us through an example of how a student might journey through this qualification, starting learning the course content in September. And other ways of organizing this are possible. As I said, this is just one example. So 21st of March will be the entry deadline for the first available exam series, which will be this time next year. And that is Edexcel Online, EOL, which you as teachers will have a login for to allow you to access some of the services we'll talk about later, like secure exam papers, for example. But it's also how exams officers make the entries. First available exam series is May and June 2025. So for example, you might choose to enter students for Unit 1 of their GCSE Physics, having taught them half the course content by then. They will have their result for that unit in August 2025, continue teaching them in September, if that's how your school year works, have another opportunity to to enter for Unit 2, and you might at this point enter the caching code to request a grade to be awarded and a certificate. June in 2026, the exam for Unit 2 could be taken with the certificate then awarded that following August. So one way of organising the course and the assessment, and we'll look at some other examples in another slide or two. So why might you take this approach? Now, you may have decided already. Even if you have, then you need to be able to explain this decision to students and parents, of course. So we think advantages of this modular approach are number one, to better support students with the stress and the pressure of sitting exams, because we know that this can be a very big issue that schools around the world are increasingly focused on, and being able to spread the exams out and knowing that there is an opportunity to resit them can really help students to deal with that. They have more opportunities to demonstrate their skills and abilities. And also you have more opportunity to give them feedback after they have sat a real exam. And they can take exams when they're ready, which is true of many other tests that are taken in life. So, for example, driving tests, students don't all have to sit when they reach a certain age. They can wait until they've had enough practice and they feel confident, and then they can enter to be tested to see if they can drive a car. So it makes sense to us that this approach should be extended to their physics qualification. For educators and parents, then mid-cycle data, meaning that halfway through the course, you might have that advantage of an externally marked actual exam paper that does count towards the students' grades to really find out what they can do. And then you have the ability to analyze that results. We'll talk about Results Plus shortly, one of our free services that allows you to compare your students' performance with other Edexcel centres and see which questions they've done well or less well on. It eases the pressures faced by exams officers because you can spread the exams out through the course rather than having them all taken at the end. And in your region, it may be that it's a financial burden on parents to pay for exam fees. It can help them to budget, again, by spreading that cost. Okay, so a little more of an overview and talking a little here about double award as well. Now, you may or may not have already considered double award, but it's a qualification which is worth 2 GCSEs. As Chelsea said a little while ago, the grading is from 9-9, so 2 grade 9s is the top grade, then 9-8, 8-8, 8-7, and so on. And biology, chemistry, and physics are covered. It's the same specification content, but only 2/3 of the points from the specification for the double award. So it is possible to teach students in the same class. More commonly, they would be in different classes, perhaps receiving fewer hours of science teaching, or perhaps the same amount for students who are less confident and need more support to be ready for those exams. So 120 hours, GL8 is guided learning hours. It basically means classroom time for each of the separate biology, chemistry, and physics. You may know these as triple award science, which technically it's not a single triple award qualification. They're 3 separate qualifications. So I will use the term separate physics or separate science for those GCSEs, or around twice one of those, just a little more, is the recommended for the double award. But these are just guidelines in any case. And in terms of teaching and learning resources, we'll start to look in detail at our free resources on the website in a second. But we have the specification, the key document that sets out what you need to teach, getting started guides and course planners, schemes of work with suggested lesson activities. We'll show you a bit more detail of those shortly in this training, but these are all key documents for you to be looking at while you make your plans for next year. We also have some paid for resources, which are optional. You don't need to buy the textbooks, but they are available to you. Student textbooks, lab books, and Teaching Hubs is our quite new digital package of supporting resources that can accompany the textbook. In terms of assessment resources, to support your entries, we have November and June series in general, although the first one, as we've said, will be June 2025. And from there, then onwards, November 25, June 26, November 26, and so on. There's no limit to how many times students can resit units. For double award, as it says here, we have 6 units in total. Units 1 and 2 are the biology, 3 and 4 chemistry, and units 5 and 6 are the physics for double award. For the separate GCSEs, it's always unit 1 and unit 2. And we have exemplar exam questions already available. Shortly, as soon as we have an exam series, there'll be examiner reports with examples of student responses and past papers. And you can already use Exam Wizard to search for the linear physics questions, which are of the same style, so you can choose them for past papers and to get more of an idea of how the course will be assessed, because it will be through the same style of questions. And we'll talk a little more about that later. Results Plus I've already mentioned. This is our service to allow you to see how individual students have performed on individual questions, and how your students as a group have performed on individual questions compared to the Edexcel average, amongst other useful things that analysis can tell you. Okay, I'll just pause again and have a quick look at the chat, see if there's anything I should talk about. Give you a chance to look as well. Yeah, Chelsea has confirmed it is just November and June. There's no January series for the GCSE. So the specification is new, but the content of the specification is the same, which is a little confusing. The reason there's a separate specification is because the specification also contains details of the exams and when they're available and what's in each exam. That is different because the course has been reorganized to make it modular, but the actual physics that you teach, while the order might be slightly different, is the same. Good question about whether it's the highest mark or the highest of the last 2 sittings. Now, Chelsea may be able to confirm this, but my belief is that it will be the same as the IAL, and it will be the best of their last 2 sittings. So they can resit it as many times as they like.
My understanding is, and I can double check this, is that it's just the highest mark that's taken forward.
Okay.
But I can triple check that.
Yeah,
if we're both a bit unsure, but that was my understanding, is that it was the highest. It wasn't within the last 2. It was just the highest they get overall. But no.
Okay, yeah, it was only my assumption that it would be the same as the IAL. So yeah, we'll see if we can confirm that for you within this training. But Chelsea's more likely to be correct about this than me, so trust her for now. Okay, great. Chelsea, any other questions it's worth commenting on, do you think, or any hands up that I've missed?
I'm just going to respond to in separate students. So the question in relation to, do they give unit 1 and unit 2 as one paper for bio, and then unit 3 and unit 4 for physics? So you would only talk about unit 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 if you had students doing a double award. If you have them doing separate, you have a unit 1 and a unit 2 for separate physics. You would then have a unit 1 and a unit 2 for separate chemistry. You would then have a unit 1 and a unit 2 for separate biology. So they're always just unit 1 and unit 2. We've more mentioned that just because we're aware there are some people on the call who might be doing the double award. So I appreciate it's not ideal that there's different numbers you have to think of. But for chemistry, for example, Unit 1 and Unit 2, the content that comes up in those exams would be comparable to the Unit 3 and Unit 4 papers for double award. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, just let me know. Oh, sorry, you said got it. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. I think that was very clear. And yes, I just add to that each unit is always a separate exam as well. So unit and exam, you can interchange them. Okay, this slide is a look at how the physics content is split between the two papers. I'll give you a chance just to read through the slide in a second, but just to comment that those statements which are in bold with one asterisk, one star after, are only in the separate physics course. They're not covered at all in the double award. Within each of those specification points, for example, within movement and position, there will be some content which is only in physics and other content which is in both. And we'll show you how to spot that in a second. But electrical charge is only in separate physics. And the other special ones are the units, which appear everywhere. So knowledge of all of the units which are covered is expected in both units of the course. So sorry, units meaning two different things here. Physics units can appear in both exam units. I'll just let you read the slide.
Hello, Tim.
Hello.
This is Rohit here. Morning to everyone and afternoon, depending upon the places.
Of course, yes.
I have few questions, if you allow. Like my
please.
first question is like, as you have mentioned about the double and the triple year we are talking. So like when we talk about the linear module, so in linear module, we have 2 paper for triple awards and 1 paper for double award. Right? Now, if we compare that with the new module, so right now for the double award, we are having 2 papers, that is Unit 1 and Unit 2.
Correct. For modular.
Right? Yeah. So when we go for the triple one, so do we mean that they have 6 papers or like they have the same?
Yeah, we do have a slide which makes this a little clearer coming up, but if they do the 3 sciences, separate biology, chemistry, physics, or triple, they will have 6 exams. If they do the double award, they also have 6 exams in the modular system, but the exams are shorter. So in the linear, they have fewer exams, but they sit the same longer paper. In the modular, 6 exams for double award, but they're shorter exams.
Shorter exams. Okay.
So overall, the same amount of time in assessments, or very similar.
Understood. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Did you have another question, Rohit?
Yes, one more. When we talk about the like we are keeping the syllabus same. So are we following the same booklets that we have for the previous years, or is there any changes we are expecting coming up?
So we'll talk a little more about the resources that are already available in the second part of the presentation. But really, everything that you have been using, it should remain relevant. The textbooks are still relevant, so we're not producing new textbooks. We didn't want to force schools to have to spend money on brand new textbooks, which really have exactly the same content, just with some very slight changes to the ordering. So instead, as we'll show you, there are documents on the website that help you to find the pages in the Pearson textbook if you already have those for your linear course. And really all of the other materials will still be valid. It's just about the ordering of the topics that you need to pay attention to, which you might need to change.
Got it. Thank you so much. And one last question. Now, when we talk about the resources, especially for the past papers, so because this is a new module which we'll be introducing now, and the students will be sitting in June 25. The first session will be beginning from June 25, right? So we'll be getting any samples to get an idea about how the assessment is going to be taking place, or it will be just coming directly?
Yeah, good question. So there are sample exam papers available now on the website, along with the new specification. As is normal for all new qualifications, we won't be producing large numbers of sample papers, but you can construct papers using Exam Wizard, which is our free online tool for searching up past exam questions, using the linear questions, because they are going to be exactly the same style of question. So it's just a question of locating them from the right topic. Chelsea, I don't know whether there's a plan to make any additional sample assessments. Occasionally we do have a second set of those. Do you know?
Yeah, I am looking into this. At the moment, our examiners are quite busy with the summer series, but my plan is to meet them once they're finished with that and look into how feasible and easy that is to do. I can't guarantee they would be ready for first teaching September 2024, but hopefully there will be some additional material available. And just to add as well, with Exam Wizard, there will be a modular option, so you can search for it from like a modular point of view instead of having to work out, oh, is this specification point in Unit 1 or Unit 2? It will all be set up for you as well. So that will help with if you want to make your own assessment.
And that's coming soon, I think.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the questions. Okay, so moving on to have a look at some examples of how you might arrange your units across the 2-year course differently, or 3-year course for that matter. So as many of you will know, GCSEs are really designed to be 2-year courses, but many schools start teaching a year early. So you have that option as well. But our examples here are based on 2 years of teaching. So really the considerations that you would have with a linear course about how you sequence your topics, the idea of key threshold concepts, which students must grasp before they can move on to other topics and so on, they remain the same. You just need to make sure that you have covered all of the content of a particular unit before students sit their exam in it, which is a difference with the linear course. You just need to make sure you finish teaching the whole course before they start sitting their exams, of course. So here in example 1, as we've already mentioned in our timeline slide, you might enter them for Unit 1 at the end of what we in the UK call Year 10. So our years see students finish their GCSEs at the end of Year 11. That's the year they turn 16 years of age. So Year 10, 14 to 15-year-olds. If you have a grade system based on the American system, that would be grade 9 and grade 10. So we are one number out in the UK. So Year 10, the first year of the GCSE course, Year 11, the second. Or our second example here, you might enter them for Year 10 in June and then plan to have a resit opportunity for that the following November with Unit 2 in Year 11. Or you could enter both units in November of the second year. And of course, we are giving examples here based on a school year that begins in September. If your school year begins in January, then of course you would most likely be entering them in November rather than June as their main exam series. But then you have the option of them resitting the following June, any unit that they need to. This slide is about progression from different stages in a student's science education. And it's a reminder that there are Pearson Edexcel qualifications which follow on from this International GCSE course, but also come before it. So we have an I-Primary, International Primary course and an International Lower Secondary course. That's for 11 to 14-year-olds, designed as a pre-GCSE course. There's no need for your schools to offer these, but there are, again, resources, textbooks, assessments, schemes of work available, which you might be interested in. And then, of course, international AS and A-level, which follow on from it. And again, our GCSE course works well as a pre-A-level course, whatever exam board you choose, but there are some advantages to choosing Pearson EdXL for all of these because these courses have been designed with progression in mind. So we have an example here about magnetic fields and how the specification points at all those different levels feed into each other, support progression. Okay, I'll move on for another slide or two before I check for any more questions. We have some information here about resources, 3 resources that are available now to support you with your planning. Just a little help with finding the qualification website. If you look for Pearson International GCSEs, you will then find an alphabet here and physics under P, of course. Then you'll have a choice between the linear and modular web pages. And Chelsea has been doing a lot of work over the last few months developing new materials for the modular course, but it will take time for all of the materials on the linear website to be updated and adapted. So it is also worth looking at the linear website if you're not already familiar with it, because as we've said, the resources there are still all very relevant to this course as well. The specification we've mentioned, that's the key document to refer to when you're ensuring that you're teaching the content and that students are familiar with the language that appears in the specification, because that will be the language used in the exam questions. And on the right, we have this course materials box, that pale blue box, where you have the key links to the other pages we're going to be referring to. So the specification available to download, you can see what it looks like there in the top right. And you can also find it through the specification and sample assessments link. That's also, of course, where the sample exam papers and mark schemes are. There you can download the specification. It looks like this. We have a double award version and the separate physics version. Key sections that you might wish to refer to, especially if you're talking to parents and students and colleagues about the switch. So why choose the International GCSE modular route? The qualification at a glance. Chelsea mentioned this earlier, actually, when we had a question in the chat about how the topics, how do you know what's going to appear in each unit? So the qualification at a glance section has a page for each unit and each exam paper, and it sets out the topics that are covered in each one. So that's very useful. And again, this page is very helpful if you're explaining the difference between linear and modular when it comes to double award and separate GCSEs, because it explains that you would take 6 exams in either case, 6 exams for 3 science GCSEs, 6 exams for the double award 2 GCSEs, but this shows that they are 90 mark papers for the separate GCSEs and 60 mark papers for the double award. So shorter papers rather than fewer papers for the double. A little more about sample assessment material, then I'll pause for a minute to take any questions you have. So they look like this in terms of the link. Sample assessment materials, these are the example papers that have already been produced. The document looks like this and its cover. And a little more detail of the exams. So it's 1 hour, 40 minutes for a separate physics exam, 90 marks. each unit the same, 50% of the total. Whereas for the double award, 60 marks in a 1 hour, 10-minute paper, 6 papers altogether, and again, all equally weighted. And they have slightly different codes as a result. So 4WPH for physics, for example, 2, 4WPH2 is physics unit 2, for example, 4WPH1 is physics unit 1, whereas 4WSD for science double is the code for those. Okay, I will just pause there. Please do raise your hand if you have a question. So Chelsea may be about to answer this in the chat, but there is a question about a new textbook, and my understanding is no new textbook. The textbooks that are already available for the linear course are still the recommended books. They are equally valid and relevant. Chelsea's answered a question about the bold points on our slide about what content is in each unit. And we'll say a little bit more about this in a second. But yes, those topics that are in bold on that slide and individual specification points, if you go to the specification which are in bold, are the ones which you need to cover for separate GCSE physics, but don't need to be covered for the double award. So a question from Rohit about grade boundaries. So grade boundaries will be set, as they always are, in response to the actual performance of the paper. So we never, and I think it's the same for all exam boards, we don't publish exam grade boundaries in advance of the exams being sat, because it's always slightly unpredictable how students will find the questions. And so once the marking process has been complete and all the marks are available, the examiners then set the grade boundaries, working with other colleagues and regulators to ensure that the qualification is comparable to the linear route and functioning as it should. And then the grade boundaries will be published along with the results. But you can expect the overall demand and challenge of the qualification to be exactly the same as for the linear. Okay, let's continue then. We'll have a bit more time for questions at the end. We don't have many more slides to cover. A little more on the free resources available. We have getting started guides. They are available along with several other key resources in the teaching and learning materials page of the qualification website. And then there are headings to expand, and under guide, you have this getting started guide. There's the cover. Really useful starting point for your planning. Introduction to the course adds a bit more detail to what's in the specification with some key content, for example, the formulae that you need to teach and assessment information. And here there's an example of some points being in bold with the letter P after the reference number. Those are GCSE physics only, not assessed in double award. Schemes of work are also available now. They don't need to be followed exactly, but they're there in case you wish to use them as an example of how you might structure and deliver the course. Again, they're found in teaching and learning materials That's what it looks like to download. They are numbered, and depending on how many lessons you have, you can treat them as lessons or weeks of the course, with a lesson title, a reference to the specification to make it clear what content is to be covered, some suggested activities, resources, including page numbers in the existing textbook. And again, you don't need to buy the textbook, but many of you will already have it, and many of you will choose to get it. So there are page numbers there, and some links to other online resources, including in the Teaching Hub's digital bundle that comes, which is available with the textbooks if you wish to purchase it. We've chosen, or rather Chelsea has chosen, a number of very well respected organisations. We've thought quite carefully about how best to support you with some links to other organisations, and organisations like the Institute of Physics are more reliable in terms of the links being updated and redirected than some online sources, so they should remain functioning for some time to come. And you may have noticed that, as is inevitable really, some of the links in our linear GCSE schemes of work will no longer be working. That's unfortunately just part of the nature of the internet. It doesn't stay still for very long. So an advantage of this course actually is that you have the benefit of Chelsea's hard work to make all the links work for these new resources. That's an example of a Teaching Hub link there. So there's also in these schemes of work some columns at the end here for skills that can be developed, transferable skills and exam skills through that topic. And not only that, we have lessons also built in for assessments, your internal assessments, feedback lessons following those, all built into the scheme of work. So well worth a look if you haven't already seen them. And a reminder, as we've already said, that any of the resources on the linear website are also relevant. So do look at those as well. And there is a lot more on there because, of course, those courses have been running for several years. Course planners, again, these are just a guide. They're not prescriptive. You don't need to follow them. But this is another document that just helps with the overview of that long-term planning. Perhaps useful when you're sharing a class with another teacher, for example, or overseeing the work of a number of teachers in your school. So again, this content in bold with the P is for physics GCSE, but not assessed in the double science. Practical activities are in italics to make those a little easier to spot. And consolidation and feedback lessons are also built into the planner. The double award course planner is designed by Chelsea quite carefully to make sure that threshold concepts, key ideas which students need to grasp before they move on, are covered sensibly, and you're not just working through the course from Unit 1 to Unit 6, which would mean that they didn't study any physics until much later. Okay, I'm just going to have a very short pause to have a look in the chat. So Mariana has a question about how marks are awarded to students in the double award. No, it's not the highest two of the three sciences. They simply have 6 units, 6 exams, 2 for biology, 2 for chemistry, 2 for physics. And then the overall mark is used to calculate the grade. And you can really think of it as a single qualification. So it's a single grade, but because it's double weighted, they get 2 grades, but they can't get, for example, a grade 9 and a grade 6. That never happens. The top grade is 9.9. The grade below that is 9.8. The grade below that is 8.8. And it's all of their units averaged together, basically. So they don't have a grade for biology and a grade for chemistry. They just have their 2 grades for double award science, and they're always the same grade or the adjacent grades, like 7-6. Thank you. A question from Sarah: is there some training available like this to explain how the modular works for A level? Well, there are welcome to Pearson events, I think, that you can sign up for on the Professional Development Academy, which is the Pearson website for booking yourself onto courses like this. And I believe Chelsea can perhaps check this, and she might be able to put the link in the chat. But I believe there are welcome to Pearson events for the international A levels coming up, which will cover much of this content as well, probably in September. Yeah, I don't think there's anything planned for before September that I'm aware of for A level. There was a question about recording for this session, so you can download the slides. I think Jira mentioned at the start that there's a download link. Do ask a question in the chat if you can't find it. Regarding the recording, my understanding is that this will be made available again through that Pearson Development Academy, sorry, Professional Development Academy website, and on our Edexcel Educators YouTube channel. So you can find it in one of those places, but it might take a few weeks for it to be edited and prepared for upload. We can find some links for you at the end and put them in the chat to the websites that we've mentioned. Okay, let me see if I can just finish off then. We're nearly there. So Exam Wizard, we've mentioned a few times. As I said before, it's a free service. You need an Edexcel online login. If you don't yet have one, the exams officer in your center can set that up for you. You need to use the Pearson Authenticator app on a smartphone to log in, because Edexcel Online has lots of student data stored within it, which you have access to. So the security is quite high. If you have difficulty with the login process, please do get in touch with Pearson through our contact form or by emailing me. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. Textbooks, as I mentioned, are available. They're the same as the linear books. You don't have to purchase them, but they are available to you along with the Teaching Hub online subscription, which we've mentioned a few times. There's another document you might want to look at, especially if you're used to linear, our linear course. It's under Teaching and Learning Materials again, and it's called Linear to Modular Specification Numbering Guide, which helps you to navigate those changes to the ordering of the points in the specification. There's also a transition document if you're currently teaching Cambridge, to help you understand how our course compares to that one in terms of the specification mapping. And another reminder, I know I've said it several times, resources on the linear website are also worth having a look at. So this is a very useful one. The Core Practical Guide has example exam questions on practicals. Now, we've not mentioned these before, so in case you're not aware, we don't have any kind of practical assessment for this course. The assessment is all through the exam papers. There are core practicals which students are expected to understand how to conduct, and you are strongly recommended to have them learn this by actually doing the practicals themselves. However, it's not required that they do so. So if it's difficult in your center to do a particular practical, it's also perfectly acceptable to just discuss it, perhaps watch a video of the practical being conducted. But the Core Practical Guide shows you example exam questions and mark schemes for each practical. And in an appendix at the end, it has equipment lists for technicians to help you to actually carry them out. So that's on the linear website. I think a modular version will be coming soon, but while you're waiting for it, you can just go and find it on the linear webpage. And this is our final slide. You'll find this contact card on the qualification web pages. So teachingscience@pearson.com. Please do email that with any questions or requests that will come through to me. I can forward it on to Chelsea or any other colleagues if I can't answer it. There's also a link, as you see here, to book an appointment with me. That's to talk directly to me on a Teams call. And please do make use of that opportunity as well. And I'll just pause there. We have a few more minutes. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please feel free to raise your hand or ask them in the chat. Chelsea has put the link just a few minutes ago at 9:53 in the chat to the website I mentioned where you can look for future training opportunities. Jira, there's a couple of people asking about the downloading the slides. Because I have a slightly different view as presenter, I wonder if you could just remind people where they can find the download section.
Yes. So everyone, there's a resources button down in the bottom toolbar. If you're unable to see the resources button, you can press on the 3 dots called More, and the resources button should appear there.
Thank
you will
you.
be able to download the event materials.
Yes, something I should have mentioned. I've just seen a question about teaching hubs in the chat. If you are interested in any of those paid for resources, then your best option is to get in touch with your local Pearson consultant who can talk to you about prices and arrange trials and so on. And I'll just put a link to a website that can help you to find them in the chat. So contact your local Pearson consultant. If you don't already know who they are, then they're a useful person to know in your region who can talk to you about resources that are available.
Hello, Tim. Rohit again.
Hi.
Just one last question. Can you go back to the slide where we have this mark distribution about the
this one?
Next one. Yeah. So in this, if we go have a look at the double awards, which we are having a 60-mark paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we are having total 6 papers in there, and each paper will be worth of 16.67 as it mentioned. So are we looking into that as one single paper of a science when the overall marks are coming in?
Sorry, I don't quite understand that question, Rohit. Could you
Okay.
could you ask it a different way?
Yeah, sure. Like to give an idea, like when we talk about the triple, so we are having unit 1 and unit 2,
Mm-hmm.
right? So for whether it is for physics, whether it is for bio or for chemistry. So that means 50% of each unit will be contributing to the total marks.
Yes.
Now, when we go for the double award, so here we are having 6 papers. So that is unit 1, unit 2 refers to your bio, unit 3 and 4 for chem, and unit 5 and 6 for physics. So that means whatever marks the students are getting, like suppose in physics unit 5, unit 6, they get some marks for unit 5 and unit 6. So out of that, only 16% from each unit will be taken in overall.
Oh, yeah, I think I see. No, it just means that each unit is 1/6 of the total. So all of the marks from each unit go forward, if you see what I mean.
Got it. Yeah.
except that they're converted into this uniform mark out
Uniform,
of
okay.
it's out of 120 for the physics, and I believe it's out of 80 for the double award, but Chelsea
Double
may
award, yeah.
may correct me. But yes, so the 16.67% there it is just 1/6 of the total assessment, because there are 6 papers. So it's really just showing that they're all equally weighted. They can contribute equally to the overall grade that's awarded.
Got it. Yep. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And this meeting was very helpful. Just cleared many things. Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you. And thank you for your questions. Chelsea, is there anything else that you think we should say before we close? I'm sorry to put you put you in the position of having to speak again.
No, I feel like most things have been addressed. If there is any further questions that anyone wants to ask, please do feel free. And yeah, just thank you everyone for attending. And if you do need any further support, or you do want any further support, please do just reach out through those contact details that are at the end of the PowerPoint, and we'll do what we can.
Yeah, I was just trying to get back to that slide and managed to go too far. So just before we close, let me share it, put it back on the screen. But these details that you can hopefully see again now, as I mentioned, they're on all of the qualification web pages for international science qualifications. So yeah, please do get in touch if you have further questions. And thank you all very much. I thought there might be a question there, but I think not. I think we are done. If you'd like to.
One more thing, Tim.
Sorry,
Just
Rohit, yes.
Sorry, I'm bothering you a lot. Someone has mentioned about the 3-year program in the comment box. So if we looking into the 3-year program, as Chelsea had mentioned, it's still in the process. Just to have an idea, like suppose the year 9, which are sitting right now, like we'll be starting with a session with them in the September. So they will be in year 9. So by June 25. So can they sit in the first unit 1 exam?
Yeah, there's no restriction on when they can sit and over how many years you can spread the exams. So if you feel they're ready,
Okay.
I guess the downside is they're less mature as learners, but there may be advantages depending on your context to giving them an early experience of an exam. You could wait until the following November, perhaps when they're a little older. It's really up to you. You have that full flexibility.
Got it. But they can sit in, right? They can sit in June 25.
They can, yeah.
Sure. Okay.
And with so just to add context to that as well, at the moment the course planners on the websites are on the assumption that you're teaching this course over 2 years. I am currently working on 3-year course planners, but generally it's just a case of the content is more spread out. So there's sort of I'm building in more revision lessons, and I'm going to work with the examiners to look at what are some key revision topics that students would perhaps benefit from. So yeah, the content wise, it won't really be different. It's just a bit more spread out, but it's obviously going to be very generic to meet the needs of any potential teacher who might need it.
Exactly, because when we talk about the 3-year pattern, it just, as you mentioned, it will be more elaborative. You have more time to go about with the syllabus and practice more that way. Okay, sounds good. Yep, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to say thank you very much, everybody, for attending. And it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for all the questions. They were all really good ones. And yeah, do get in touch if you have any more queries or need for support. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tim and Chelsea, for today's session. And thank you, everyone, for attending. We really hope you found it useful. Have a great day and stay safe.